For the second time in as many weeks, Coach Sean Payton proved that the national narrative about him being a horrible coach that no one would want to sign as completely false as he pulled a player about to sign elsewhere back to the confines, the 303, back to Denver. That and so much more in this video. The Denver Broncos also went out and got some depth at a much-needed position. We're going to break all that down in this video. If you're new to this channel, my name is Ben. I'm a diehard Denver Bronco fan. If you like the Broncos, it helps me out a lot if you would like and subscribe. So let's first look at this big move of the day that we made in going out and signing an offensive tackle who has all of the skills, all of the size, and all the attributes that you would hope to have in a starting left or right tackle. We went out and signed a one-year contract, a prove-it deal with offensive tackle Matt Peart. He was a third-round draft pick for the New York Giants, and looking at some of his grades from Pro Football Focus, he started 421 snaps out there, and on those 421 sacks, he only allowed 4 sacks, which I think is pretty fantastic when you consider the fact that he was blocking for Daniel Jones, who has been hit or miss. Daniel Jones didn't have a ton of offensive weapons other than Saquon Barkley, and only had 3 penalties in those 421 sacks. So I will take it, especially when you just look at the size of this dude, right? 6'7", 318, that is, if you were drawing up a left tackle or a right tackle, that is who you would want. And looking at him coming out of the combine, a good backup with starting potential. So that also is a very great sign. I think the Denver Broncos really overachieved on the offensive line this year. You look at the breakdown that we've done the past 2 days where Mike Clay goes and grades all of our positions, and our offensive line time and time again has stood out as a really one of the best parts of this entire squad. And I think a lot of that is due to our offensive line coach, Zach Strief. I remember when we moved on from Munchak, all the players just glowed about him. You heard the difference that he made in so many offensive tackles and offensive linemen's game. And so I was like a little iffy on like what I thought about Zach Strief. But then when you really break it down and think about it, Zach Strief was a offensive lineman in a Sean Payton system and played offensive line for Sean Payton. So who better understands that position and the nuances of it than him? And that's something that you heard the belly over and over during training camp talk about, like, hey, it means so much that we have a guy who just was playing in Sean Payton's system, in our lifetime, and that's an exciting thing that he can teach the nuances, and he can really, as we've heard, Sean Payton said all that he installed this year was the guardrails of this offense. And now you have Zach Strief being the guy who's going to mold Matt Peart, and I'm up on that. I think that could be a really cool thing. We broke down the past couple of days. Mike Clay came out and predicted the Broncos were going to be the 31st worst team in the NFL this year. If that's the case, which I definitely do not think it is the case, but if it is, I think that at the trade deadline, you could see us moving on from Garrett Bolles in that there's no point in having a guy towards the end of his contract who's up in years and that you're paying so much money to, who will not be a part of this Broncos squad when we're making a playoff push. If we really are rebuilding and we're tearing this thing down more to the studs, I think we could get some good trade assets for Garrett Bolles, in which case having a Matt Peart as a backup is absolutely fantastic news. So let me know in the comments, how do you feel about signing Matt Peart? Watching his interview with the Denver Broncos, he seems excited to be here and talked about the tradition and talked about how eager he is to learn from Zach Strief. So then the big news of the day is for, we remember last week when free agency started, one of the priorities was we needed Wil Lutz back here, that he was the most accurate kicker in Denver Broncos history. You throw out that Raiders game, the first game of the year, and the dude barely missed. And so we then saw him like signing with the Jaguars, and we were all so bummed. And then all of a sudden he has a change of heart and he's back with the Denver Broncos. And that right there was like, oh, national media, are you sure that Sean Payton's such an evil dude that no one wants to play for? Because he seemed to suck back this kicker, and the money is very, very equal between what the Jaguars are going to pay him and what the Broncos are going to pay him. And that all happened again today. It looked like our inside linebacker, Justin Strnad, who we had really high hopes for, we picked him in the 5th round a couple of years ago. His first year, he was going to actually start at the middle linebacker position. I think he broke his wrist or something like that and was out. But we had really high hopes for him at inside linebacker. And since then, as he's been coming back from that injury, he's been a key special teams player, and we've seen him just really shine in that area. And it seemed as if he was going to the Panthers following Josey Jewell, and they were going together. Well, then all of a sudden we see them coming back, and all of a sudden he's signing back with the Denver Broncos, and you just see Mike Kliss, all these people be like, man, that's just bizarre. You don't hear players do that very often, and I just love the fact that all of the, with all the Russell Wilson stuff, you saw all the Twitter heads be like, oh, nobody wants to play for Sean Payton. He'll never be able to get a free agent again. And you just see then how that narrative has changed as player after player after player has been asked to renegotiate their deal, to open up their contract. You see Keenan Allen do it. You see half of the Chargers opened up their contract. You see even Patrick Mahomes did that, and this, again, is just even more fodder against that argument that there's something wrong with Sean Payton. I even just love this tweet by Zach Stevens at the DNVR, just saying it must be pretty tough to leave Sean Payton, and that's just so different from what we heard all year long, all offseason long, and we should be excited about that, because if we're doing this with almost no money right now, next year we are going to have more cap room than any team in the NFL. We're going to have over $100 million. And if Sean Payton is luring players back to us without the promise of a starting role, as is the case with Justin Strnad, I think we could be really, really excited about that. And I also, you go back to Strnad's pre-draft workouts, and we were really excited that, hey, this guy actually might become a starter. And I think with a healthy season, we could see him subbing in on that role. I'm really high on Jonas Griffith, really high on Cody Rourke, and so hopefully we don't even need to crack the seal on that. But if the injury bug does start biting us, I feel excited about Justin Strnad being back. And then even just hearing what last season, what Vance Joseph was saying was, hey, the reason he hasn't really hit his stride at middle linebacker is this is the first time he's ever had to play that, and he's growing really, really fast at that. And this was after one of those Jonas Griffith injuries before we had the Singleton-Josey Jewell combo. So very, very excited about that. Last thing I wanted to talk about today was Russell Wilson dropped yet another major hype video about his offseason conditioning. I'm just curious, as you all watch this, does this trigger anything in you? It makes me a little bit terrified, because I remember watching these when we first signed him and thinking we're going to the Super Bowl. He's got Jerry Jeudy, he's got Cortland Sutton, he's got Tim Patrick, and remember he flew all those dudes out to his house in San Diego and was doing a wide receiver camp with them, and I was just super excited. So curious to y'all, do you think we are going to regret moving on from Russell Wilson, or do you think this is yet another hype video that we never actually see the fruits of it? But man, look at that's the thing about his arm strength. It was always there. Noticing, man, all these throws are to the outside, and he can definitely see over the snapper who's on his knees. Unfortunately, in the NFL, none of the offensive linemen snap you the ball on their knees like that. So I curious what y'all think. It has been amazing riding with y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for dropping a comment and a like. In Broncos country, it's time to giddy up. Oh, felt like I had it off my rebound.